Jacob Eason, the quarterback at the University of Washington, just declared for the NFL draft. He's now leaving college, heading to the NFL. He's doing it a year before he could have stayed another year. He could have stayed in college one more year and developed, and he decided to leave. And currently, I do not think that Jacob Eason is ready for the NFL. He makes some questionable decisions at times. His accuracy struggles occasionally. He's just inconsistent in areas. I think he needs to be more consistent if he wants to succeed as a starting quarterback in the NFL. So right now, today, Jacob Eason could not be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's not ready yet. However, I do believe that leaving college to go to the NFL is still the right thing for him, which is rare. Normally, I say guys should stay and develop, but Jacob Eason has here's the interesting thing about Jacob Eason. He has to ask himself, he's incredibly talented. He's probably one of the best. He's got the best arm in all of college football. He's phenomenal throwing the ball. Jacob Eason had to ask himself, where would I rather develop? If I'm going to get better in the next year, where would I rather do it? Jacob Eason could stay in college, stay at Washington, and get better as a quarterback. And then this time next year, he'd be talked about as probably the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Just imagine, you do all this work, and then you become the number 1 overall pick. That's one option and potential future for Jacob Eason. The other option is he could, in the next year, I think Jacob Eason's going to get better as a quarterback. He could do it in college, or he could go to the NFL now, be a later first-round pick or a second-round pick, go to the Steelers or the Saints, go to a good football team, sit behind a good quarterback, and then once he's a year better next year, he'll find himself in actually a good situation when it's time for him to play. In the next year, Jacob Eason needs to get better as a quarterback. He needs to make improvements. But you got to ask yourself, where would you rather improve, in the NFL or in college? Would you rather be Joe Burrow today, getting ready to go to the Cincinnati Bengals, a terrible, horrible franchise, or would you rather be potentially Jacob Eason going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, sitting for a year behind Ben Roethlisberger, then taking over for a good football team with a good franchise, a good head coach, and a good organization? Where would you rather go? It's a long-term plan. But if I'm Jacob Eason, I don't want to be a first-round pick. I don't think a lot of guys, I wouldn't want to be the number 1 overall pick taken in the NFL draft because you usually go to a bad football team with bad coaches and bad management. I don't want to be with people that are bad managers. And if I'm Jacob Eason, I sat at home and went, okay, one future takes me to the number 1 overall pick if I get better. I got to get better either way. Would I rather get better in college or the NFL? I think you pick the NFL. It makes sense to me. Jacob Eason, it makes total sense. I think Jacob Eason did absolutely the right thing by leaving college early to go to the NFL. Look, college classes suck. I hated going to college classes. They were a waste of time. It was pointless. That's a topic we'll probably never ever talk about because I know it makes people angry. But for me, look, I wanted to work on the internet. I was sitting in entomology class. It never made sense to me. I was like, why am I studying about bugs? Zach Schaumler wants to talk about videos on YouTube. It never worked for me. And so when Jacob Eason, as a quarterback, sits in class, economics, and he's like, dude, I just want to play football. So now he gets to go be a professional football player. That's awesome. He's going to make a lot of money. It's going to be great. And more importantly, Jacob Eason is now going to end up in a scenario where he's probably going to have good people around him, good coaching staff, good teammates, a good organization. That's exactly what happened to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson went to a really good organization, the Baltimore Ravens. And they had a quarterback, Joe Flacco, who wasn't the answer long-term. But he sat for a little bit, got ready, and then when he was ready, Lamar Jackson got put in. I think Jacob Eason is in a really good situation here. I hope he's a second-round pick or a late first-round pick, and he goes to a good football team. And Jacob Eason has a good organization around him and is set up in a good situation to succeed in the NFL. Here's one last point about Jacob Eason. My only concern about him is his work ethic. I live in his home state of Washington. I know people who played in high school with him. I know a lot of people in the building at University of Washington. I know people that have been around him for years. They all say one thing. They all say their concern about him is his work ethic. They're all a little bit hesitant. It was going to workouts in high school. He would make up excuses. And there's this and there's that. And he sat for a year in college at University of Washington. And when his time came, because he transferred in, he had to sit out for a year, but he got to practice every day. And when his time came, after sitting for a year on the bench, he still hadn't mastered the offense. The people at Washington were like, dude, what have you been doing? You've been here for a year. What's going on? So my concern about Jacob Eason is about work ethic. I've heard a lot of sources tell me behind the scenes privately, there's some concern here that you might be missing out on. But I will say this: if Jacob Eason, if that's all not true, and Jacob Eason really, the work ethic thing is not a problem, it's going to work out. Because other than that concern, he's going to go to a good organization, probably sit behind a quarterback for a year. And if that happens, if Jacob Eason works hard, keeps improving as a quarterback, and has time to develop with a good organization, it's terrifying. Jacob Eason could absolutely be a home run in the NFL.